Whether you've got one of these or one of these, the answer is still pretty much the same. Greetings and salutations, I am Skojo in 360. This is an inspired video. Hallelujah! What happened? Well, as you know, my channel is primarily about 360, but I'm a traditional video producer, have been producing for over a decade, and I also am part of a GH5, Lumix GH5. I'm not getting paid to promote these guys, but I love this camera. I'm shooting on another GH5 right there. So it was inspired by something I saw on the GH5 Facebook group, but also addressing all the people that subscribe to me for my 360. What I'm about to tell you applies to all cameras, and I will also tell you that there will be probably more negative comments over what I'm about to say than any other video I do, because this is a very subjective answer. There is no objective answer, and I have a pretty strong objective feeling about what you should do. So I'm gonna piss somebody off. Let's get right to it. All right, well, in the battle of the cameras, again, between, well, this is a DSLR and this is a 360 camera, I see a lot of people that are like, oh, I can't wait for 6K, I can't wait for 8K. And I'm like, no, yes, you can. And I have been blessed to work with some amazing cinematographers that have $20,000, $30,000 RED cameras, and are they awesome? They are mind-blowing. The color balancing when you get it into post is just gorgeous because you shoot in RAW and you get like all the blacks and the reds, and it's just an absolute thing of beauty. But the cameras are like $20,000 to $30,000. GH5 only shoots 4K. I believe the body was $2,000 for this one. No, $1,500 for this one, $2,000 for my GH5S. So significantly cheaper. Does it have the 8K resolution? No. Do you need it? Probably not. Unless you're dealing with very high-end clients, you can shoot on a very professional level with a $2,000 camera, and of course probably $1,000 or $2,000 in glass, because glass is very, very important. But the resolution itself on the camera is not as big of a deal. Let me give you an example in the 360 world. One of the things that's nice about my camera, it shoots 5.7K, 24 frames or 30 frames, and that's awesome. It looks spectacular. I use it when I want to have the utmost sort of beauty. However, because I do a lot of stuff outdoors, I'm looking for something that will also give me some flexibility in slow motion. So I like to have a little bit of slow motion. If I shoot in 24 frames per second on either of these cameras and then I try to slow things down, it's gonna look horrible. So I really have no chance to slow things down in the edit bay. And let's face it, all the B-roll, everything looks cooler in slow motion. High five. So what I like to do, unless I'm out in the mountains and I just want that beautiful color, I shoot a lot of times on 4K 50 frames per second on this and 4K 60 frames per second on this, so that it gives me a chance when I'm in the edit bay to get good, clean, slow motion, because the more frames per second you have, the more clear the slow motion is going to be. So 24 frames per second already has a little bit of what they call motion blur, and it's actually very pleasing to the eye. But beyond that, when you have to stretch it out even more, the motion blur becomes annoying as hell. So if you shoot at, let's say, 60 frames a second, and you normally are rendering your videos at, let's say, 24 frames per second, that gives you more than twice to slow down to 50% slower than usual. Now again, don't get me wrong, when I'm gonna do just like an interview or something like that, I'm gonna use my 24 frames per second in the highest resolution I can get. My GH5S shoots 10-bit, looks really awesome for the price. But if I'm gonna do anything that involves some level of action, I'm gonna care more about having that slow motion than the resolution. Why? Because YouTube. YouTube has forced everybody to look at much lower resolution videos than you typically would see on your TV. A lot of people are watching YouTube on their cell phones, and if you've shot something in 8K compared to 4K, it's going to be almost indetectable except to a lot of professionals. So you don't really need to have that super high resolution when a lot of your stuff is likely ending up on one of these. Now, don't get me wrong, you should shoot in what I would call one step larger than what you hope to master to. In other words, a lot of what you're watching from me is called 1080p or HD, but I shoot in 4K. Why? Well, it looks awesome, but the reason being, let's just say this is the frame of 1080. That's the pixel rate. That's 1080. 4K is like this. Now, why do I want that? Because then when I'm in the edit bay, I can zoom in about this much without losing resolution going under 1080. So I get to be able to do some artificial pans, I can do some artificial zooms. There's a lot of tricks that I can use. Like sometimes I don't like the framing of my face when I do this, like right now, so you'll probably see me crop in a little closer or maybe down a little further or over. It gives you more flexibility, but once you get to 4K, getting 6 and 8K, it's gonna A, slow down potentially some of your processors when you're editing, and then B, it will only be noticed by a certain crowd of people. So if you're just shooting for YouTube, if you're just shooting for, mid-level clients, I would say keep your resolution as one of the priorities. It is not the priority. The priority is the story. Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, one of the greatest albums of all time, was recorded on 2 4-track recorders that were synced together, and they were analog. Nowadays, if I turn on my computer, I can get 96 tracks of digital. Can I make an album like Sgt. Pepper's? Oh, hell no. So what I'm trying to say is, make your video like Sgt. Pepper's. A lot of times having some level of restrictions is a good thing. In fact, really the main thing that matters is the story. The perfect example is, about 5 years ago, I got paid to go over to Sri Lanka to help try to save some elephants. I shot an entire short film on an iPhone 6. Does it look like an iPhone movie? Hell yes. Is it a great story still? Oh, hell yes. I like to think. Don't get caught up in the gear rush. You will never be able to get away from wanting to have better gear. So don't spend all your money on that. Spend your time maybe either investing in, good storytelling, learning how to tell good stories, learning how to do good editing. Editing, in my opinion, is far more important than resolution. I just think that editing is kind of the catch-all that everybody should know how to do. So what I'm trying to say is 5.7K, 4K works for the vast majority of people that are out there that are wanting to produce content. In fact, if you are needing 6 or 8K, there's a pretty good chance you're not even watching my channel right now. This is about more of like a prosumer level 360 thing, but also for prosumer level DSLRs. The resolution just simply is not the most important thing to do. What will get you more clients, and has always worked for me, is good storytelling, good sound tracking, clean audio. That's the thing that you do not want to sacrifice on. Go lower resolution, but if you start having crackly audio, it makes everything sound very amateurish, if not even unusable. So what I would say is make sure you have good audio. Resolution, do the best you can. Well, that is it for SCOJO in 360. Again, trying to release every Friday while I'm still at it, so tune in every Friday. Hit that subscribe button, hit the bell on the side, because it feels so good. And then you will get a notification every time I make new content. I am SCOJO in 360, gonna dance it on out of here. Make it funky.